Good morning out there. In there, probably out there, right? And we're in here, out here. Oh, and look, here's Vivi with Soggy Llama.
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. I've never been on the show. There you go, Viv. Back to Soggy Llama. Good girl.
Boy, we have a nice walk today. The garden's here. Whew. You guys ever ought to come out. It's like a mini Myers Gardens. Everybody here has just beautiful gardens. Of course, things then, nature being what it is, the azaleas are losing their blooms. And did you do any crying this week? Boy, I did. This show's going to be, I don't want it to be a downer. I want it to be a supporter, empathizer. Can you hear that out there? We have pileated woodpeckers here. Can you imagine that? All the other birds get to go over and just take some seed, but they have to bang their heads on every tree. Yes, intelligent design. Okay, good morning, Mark. I also wanted to draw your attention to Poetry Passages, Clifford Rain's wonderful show, YouTube. Poetry Passages this week with James Cruz, who is just getting more and more important because I know it sounds silly like a major national thing, but poetry is moving toward something that the only thing I've really believed in since I started this, and that it needs to be useful here. Useful here. For a long time we've been trying to dazzle or explore or be existential or blah blah blah. But now it's time, there's enough people eating it. I've been working with Mary McSchmidt and her mom Jane, and they've written this beautiful book of mother and daughter. And the poems are very different from each other, etc., etc. But the point is, beautiful. Kind of makes you think. Everybody ought to write a mother-daughter book, or a mother-son, or father-son, or something. I encourage you to always have music playing in your house. That helps me a lot, I know. We had a funny Zoom one-on-one session with Robbie Hart last week. Oh my gosh, it was so dear and so wonderful because her grandson Tommy woke up and she had to hold Tommy, and Tommy was squirmy Tommy and chirpy Tommy and yelling Tommy, and we were trying to talk about Robbie's wonderful poems while Tommy was interfering. Julie's at her new wheel, 150 years old. And she's over there right now, spinning beautifully, as she always does. And it's, I don't know, it has to be a metaphor for something, but it's beautiful. All wood, metal, with, well, I shouldn't say metal, I mean, it's big, it's like this. And it's from Canada, and it was one of the original wheels that women used to try to save economically from the home, because women weren't allowed outside the home, of course. So they decided, well, let's have an enterprise inside the home. And that's when looms and wheels, spinning wheels and yarn and all these things started to help economy in Canada, because it was hard to farm in Canada, of course, with the limited seasons. You didn't know that, or maybe you did, huh? Yeah. G.F. Corrick is a wonderful man in Grand Rapids and a terrific poet, and a heart as big as All Outdoors as we haven't said that in a long time. As big as All Outdoors. Where did that come from? I love that. That's from my childhood somewhere. I used to hear that from aunts and uncles. Oh, it's a heart as big as All Outdoors. Well, GF does, and he's put together an anthology dealing with Ukraine, and it's stunning. I saw it the other day. And Schuler Books, 2 locations, Main One, Grand Rapids. Schuler Books is donating everything. They're printing the book. They're doing it all. And every single penny, 200 of them, is that right? Anyway, goes to Ukraine. And we can't do anything, but we can do something good. That's what I keep saying. I keep saying, I can't do a thing, but I can try to do something good. I don't do a lot good, but that's good. So, you know, GF, the thing I couldn't do would be to select the people to be in it because there's so many. But GF decided only people he knew closely, you know, and that's fine. So anyway, Schuler Book, S-C-H, Schuler, that's easy. S-C-H-U, Schuler, L-E-R, got it, Schuler Books. Just go online, Schuler Books, they got an easy way to order. And all the money, every bit. And there are other bookstores that are chiming in to carry the book, and they will, GF made the rule, you will, or Schuler's did, you will only carry it if you make no money, if all the money also goes directly to Ukraine. So that's, did I say I mentioned I cried a lot this week? I don't know, did you? I couldn't, the New York Times published the pictures of the children, and I can't make them go away, but this isn't, David Brooks had a wonderful comment, really insightful. It's time to get past this phony use of morals and ethics. Get rid of it. All these folks who keep standing behind, well, it's a moral issue. It's not a moral issue, it's a human being. And David Brooks, you know, who used to be over somewhere, has really become moral in the highest sense. You have to transcend morality. You don't say, who, Anne Frank? Oh yeah, she's in the back room. No, you tell a lie. Yeah. You have to help the human being, is what David Brooks said. It has to be based on not on the Supreme Court and their laws and their morals and their rules and their ethics, and the church and their laws and their rules and their ethics and their doctrines. And here I go, look out. It's a good thing Julie's in a daze. I'm glad school's over. The very last day of school, I was scared to death for our daughter. I thought, some nitwit is gonna go. I got an idea. The last day of school, I'm bursting in there. Wouldn't that be something? That's what I'm gonna do. Kalamazoo College's Diane Seuss won the Pulitzer Prize for poetry. Frank Sonnets is the name of the book. Frank Sonnets. Isn't that marvelous? Right down the road. Here. I know. A Pulitzer Prize winner. So do you. 3 wonderful art shows last week. We just boom, 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 boom. First the Saugus. I had no idea. Lived here for the longest time. I had no idea that there were that many incredibly authentic, real artists here. So the Saugatuck Art Club, which, you know, doesn't sound that way. I'm sorry to say that, but that kind of thing makes it sound like something to do on 3 to 5 on Wednesday. Wow, it was powerful and an honor to see it. And then we went to our daughter's senior art show for her students. I don't know how she does it. I have no problem being a proud papa and bragging about this daughter of ours as a teacher. It's astonishing what we saw there. It was astonishing. And people who know art, well, that's an awful phrase, isn't it? people who respond to art were knocked out. And then we went to LaFontaine, and Meredith was so, our daughter was so just shaken by the anything but Supreme Court. She has her paintings at LaFontaine Gallery in Grand Rapids, if you're local. And she did this series of women's bodies that anybody who sees it is knocked out. And then you also look at them and see that it's only the bodies. There are no heads. All right, what do you... I have some, actually, it's a little longer, you can go now, but I'd like to read some things that are more important than anything I have to say, that have come in to me from various people. I have to kind of find these things, okay? Beth McBride, who I work with in the workshop that we have, says this beautiful thing about children. They broke my heart with their fear, with their discomfort about thinking about taking the best action in a bad situation. I tried to explain how I had made judgments about their safe placement in the room, their conduct, and the order of our actions under these circumstances. Such defensive thinking was so new for them. Bless them all. So many are thinking of these things now. What we need is unity rather than identity by difference. Isn't that interesting? Unity rather than identity by difference. Let's learn to love this dear and frightened world. We could model ourselves after the students of mine's indiscriminate generosity. Indiscriminate generosity. Yeah. Oh boy. Really encourage you to check out Poetry Passages and The First Sip. Wonderful way to start your day. And then it's a great title, isn't it? The First Sip. Hey, there's Vivi's nose. And also The Slowdown with Ada Limon. And make sure you listen to the audio portion of that, because she writes an essay and reads it before she reads this poem. It's only 5 minutes, and it's a wonderful voice, and it's the kind of thing that she just keeps hanging on beautifully. Yesterday was about trees, you know. Clifford Rains, who has the wonderful Poetry Passages, he sent an email saying he'd ordered the Ukraine book, and then he says this interesting thing. Can we stop saying shooting and call it what it is? It's a gun massacre. It's murder by a weapon of war. Shooting is what one does at the practice range. These news anchors drive me crazy with their semantic gymnastics. I'm afraid for where we're headed. Why do some people feel the need to carry an AR-15 to Walmart? Let me get this straight. The police in Texas were afraid to confront the gunman. But the Republicans are saying that it's the teachers who should arm themselves and defend their schools and do it on a meager salary while being vilified for the things they teach. If there's a planet ruled by dogs out there somewhere, I want in. It's not. Oh, and Garrison Keillor, it's too long, and maybe many of you read it, but there's some stuff in this yesterday, very Whoa, it's Lake Whoa is right here. And he says lots of stuff. The gun fetishists who talk about needing guns to defend against the government are talking nonsense. There's an old, you can see it on YouTube, interview with Earl Warren, Chief Justice Earl Warren, and he just comes right out and says the Second Amendment's a fraud. It's a fraud. And part of the reason it's a fraud is it says a well-regulated militia. Hear the first two words? Well-regulated. Where have we seen that? Okay, and what that really means. And then he says the whole thing should be thrown out anyway. It's muskets. It's a fraud, he said. Okay. The insurrectionists who took over the Capitol in 2021 didn't bother to bring their AR-15s because they already own the government. They have the U.S. Senate in their back pocket and the Supreme, I use a small letter now. He has capital S, capital C. I don't do that. Small s, small c. There's no need for artillery. They own 50 senators, so nobody's going to interfere with that. They're Tommy guns. The right wing holds power, but holding power leads to the fear of losing power. You walk down the street packing heat, bulky in your armored vest and your jockstrap, and you see liberals behind every bush and tree microwaving leftism into your brain. It is not a good life. And then it's heartbreaking. I want to believe the girl who called 911 survived the horror. I hope she has a peaceful summer among people who love her and grows up and finds her mission in life and gets out of Texas and has a good life. And that the horror fades and that eventually a May 24th comes along when she forgets to grieve. My desperate attempt poem for the day called All at Once. That's how it happens. Always happens. It could be at a circus. The clowns all smiling even beneath their paint. They could point their guns and fire, filling the stands with popcorn. We'd maybe laugh like we used to when no 18-year-old would thoughtfully consider firing round after round from a semi-automatic birthday present into the waiting stares out from bodies unwillingly growing someday into those same teen years. There alone stood the Cowardly Lion, while Pooh and Piglet, Christopher Robin and Eeyore lived on for another day. Those too young to understand, being read to until sleep came again in the middle of a chapter. It's always too late to turn the page. And there they all stood, taking shot after shot. Then they weren't there at home on time, where whoever was made dinner, watched Wheel of Fortune, played hearts or Uno. That morning, everyone woke with 2 days until summer break. 2 more school lunch hours, maybe 3 or 4 more words to learn to spell. Maybe the last chapter of Little House. Sure that in just 2 days, they would all walk out together saying, see you at the pool, playground, over at your place, or next year. Be kind. Try to be cheerful. Thanks for being with me. And Vivi stayed.